Hello, welcome to Get Your Mind On. I'm Lori Stohs. So are you just feeling exhausted and tired, paralyzed? Maybe you're not as sharp as you usually are and you have that mental fog. Maybe you're just exhausted, burnt out. Burnout, wow, what's that word? Do you hear that word, burnout? You know, sometimes I hear that word often and people are feeling, gosh, I'm just really burnt out. And you know, those signs of burnout, when you think about, am I burnt out or not? Sometimes we continue working and working along and we don't recognize maybe burnout. So when you step back and say, well, why am I burnt out? What are those signs of recognizing your burnout? Well, it's just those kinds of things. It's those things when you're starting to feel exhausted all the time. It's starting to recognize when your performance is failing. Maybe more the things that you were really good at start to be not so good. Those relationships that you've had, they're not as great as they usually are. Maybe the friendships at work or your personal relationships aren't as good. You're maybe edgy and you're short and you're just really not interested in much in life. Those are all signs of burnout. And when people say, gosh, how did I get this way? And sometimes we can't recognize that burnout is happening along the way. And we continue moving on and on and on and on. And eventually it hits you. And it becomes this chronic piece of little things here and there all of a sudden have gotten really big. And all of a sudden you're down at that bottom of the hill wondering, how did I get there? So we have to step back and first say, well, what happened? Why did I get here? You know, when we think about different things, sometimes it's self-induced. Sometimes we think that our identity, maybe we're in a new role or we want to prove ourselves. And so we're working hard and we're the first one in and the last one out of the office. And that doesn't always mean that you're productive. So if you're thinking about, is it long hours and you're showing up just to prove yourself that you're worthy and you're valuable, you know, that's not always a good sign. I always say if people are there really early in the morning and really late in the day, consistently, I'm talking consistently, there's three things going on. One, the role is too big. It's too much work for one person. Two is you don't have the right talent for the role. Or three, there's a reason you don't want to go home. So all those things are really happen when I'm coaching with people and they're wondering, why is that person here all the time for a long period of time, extended period of time? Those are reasons why. So, you know, when you look at that and think about the role, we really have to step back first and say, even as a manager or an individual, is the role too big? You know, times when we started cutting because of cost, we started adding things to other people's plates. And all of a sudden it got really, really big and people took on more. Now, for short periods of time, that's okay. But for extended periods of times, have we really stepped back since the, you know, economy changed and when things might be tough in the business and step back and reevaluate the role and decide, is that role too big? Is it too much for someone? So it might be that. It might be that it's just too much. Number two is maybe the person has taken on more responsibility, that you're maybe in transition, you're moving to a new role, and you still have the responsibility of the other role as you take on more responsibility and you haven't been able to pass that on or train somebody to do that. Sometimes that gives us a lot of work. The other thing is, as I mentioned before, is it your right talent? You know, burnout, I've always said burnout shouldn't be a word in your vocabulary if you are doing what you love every day and doing what you do best. So right now, I'm, of course, being stretched a lot, starting this new company and hiring a ton of people and getting the whole infrastructure completed. And when you think about that piece, you think about it's long and exhausting hours because there's lots and lots of work to do, which isn't sustainable over time, but I'm not doing it over years of time. But when you think about it, if you're in your talent zone and if you're doing what you do best every day, you're going to probably be tired physically, but mentally and emotionally, and when you're in your zone, you should be passionate and you should be in that place. So if you're not, you might evaluate if this work is what you should be doing, because if you don't have passion around it and you're working long hours, you're definitely going to be in the burnout state. So that is something to consider. So those things might be the reasons why, when you step back and say, how have I gotten to this point of burnout? You need to really step back and evaluate. So really that leads me to, what do you need to do? One is step back and evaluate. See how'd you get here? You know, step back and really look and say, what's going on? Did something change? Number two is, did something change with me, just in your mindset and other things going on in your life that maybe you're not as in tune to, maybe a personal dysfunctional relationship or something else that you're wanting to keep busy because of something that happened in your life. Sometimes we get to that point of we want distraction, and so we easily go to our work as a distraction from other things that are really the root cause of the problem. So those are reasons why you might think about burnout has happened over time. So for positive charge this week, I want you to think about, what does burnout mean to you? Number 2 is, have you been in a burnout, or are you in a burnout state? And 3 is, why is that? So when we think about ourselves every day, we don't want to be in this state of exhaustion and tired and cranky and not sharp and not at that performing edge. But we really sometimes don't see it coming, and it just happens. So really to think about how you can sustain yourself. Number 1, those things happen over a short period of time, but when we can get them to a period of time where we can step back, do what we do best, and love what we do, and be able to have a little bit of a balance in our life in doing the things that we love, we're at our best every day. Thanks for joining us today, and remember to get your mind on.